Brilliant. You're very welcome to leave your microphones on, by the way. As long as you haven't got like noisy dogs or neighbors or, well, children, babies, cute babies are an exception. Oh, there's Joe. Oh, wow. So who is me then? That's really weird. Okay, not to worry. Thank you, first of all, for spending some time this afternoon, allowing me to indulge one of my favorite pastimes, which is talking about stuff that I find really interesting. So that's really kind. Quick question. Joe, are you logged in on my account?
I was
Okay.
accidentally.
That's fine. I'll just kill me.
I don't know. I didn't want to do anything in case I ruined everything.
Oh, well, let's see. If it does, I'll just start it all up again.
So then I went on my phone and then I've logged in on my phone, so I didn't bugger it up.
No, there we go. Dave's been removed. Good. He was a nuisance.
Right, there we go. All right.
Bound to ask ridiculous questions, that kind of thing. Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll get into today's content. The idea really of this is to give, well, it's two things really. I have lots of sort of different recognitions about how to run things, how to share things over the recent months, and particularly around this whole idea of give everything away. And so I was kind of exploring boundaries around that. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to start teaching the stuff that I'm going to, and I, inverted commas with teaching really, but teach the stuff that I'm going to teach. I'm just going to do it in advance because first of all, even if you join the program and you hear it again, or you hear a version of it again, you won't be the same person anyway. So you're not going to hear the same thing again. I won't be the same person. So I'm certainly not going to say exactly the same thing again. So it was kind of like, wow, I don't need to hold anything back. I can just, and even though some people might hear that and go, oh, that's ridiculous, I'm not doing that. Cool, that's fine. I'm okay with that. So I'm going to share with you what I think is probably one of the most interesting package examples that I've used over the last sort of decade or so. And I've got lots of post-it notes to make sure that I stick to my plan. Although, as Rose reminded me the other day, when I read a title, I don't expect you to do what's on the title anyway. So I'll do my best for you today, Rose. Yeah, cool. So I thought it'd be a good idea just to start really briefly with what a package is. And for people watching and recording, thank you for watching the recording. Please leave any comments on YouTube or message me directly with questions, etc. I think what I'm hoping you're going to get out of this is removal of misunderstanding, primarily, and particularly the removal of any idea that you can't do things that you'd like to do. I think it's really that simple. So if you'd like to organize packages with individual clients or with organizations, by the end of this hour, you'll have, I think, pretty much everything you need to be able to go and do it. And I'm going to give you an example of how I did that and how that happened and how cool it was and how it got me out of an awkward corner, really. But I thought I'd start, and ask questions. That was the other thing I meant to say. Please ask questions. I like interaction. I like conversations. That just saves me listening to me all the time. I do that in my head anyway, so it's good. You can raise your hand. You can put comments in the chat. You all know how this game works. So let's go. What's a coaching package? Somebody asked me that the other day. I thought, that'd be a good idea to share what I think about that. So a coaching package for me really is anything other than one-to-one session, like 1 hour. So it could even be sell 5 hours, sell 6 hours. That could be deemed as a coaching package. But I think it's more than that. And I'll explain a little bit as I go along why I think it's more than that. I think it's an opportunity for you to be your most creative and also to engage your client in their possibility to be most creative. So I kind of think of packages as multiple types of sessions. And I'm not saying that this is the definition. I'm saying this is a definition that I find really useful. So in the same way you might book a package holiday, which has different components, maybe has some trips, some flights, some hotels, and whatever. A package, a coaching package would be a variety of things. So it could be like one-to-one in-person time, like a retreat day or multiple days. It could then be follow-up coaching sessions, an hour, 2 hours. It could be a half day of strategy. It could be the client reading something, learning something, reporting back. So it throws out every element that you could utilize to help a client get from where they think they are to where they think they want to be, and makes it all accessible. So that's how I think of package. And then there's various things I've seen over the years, and I'm still learning, that just work really well because other people have tried them and tested them. Cool, just utilize those. And I'm going to go through one of those examples today. Yeah, so one of the other questions somebody asked me, is it only for groups? No, it can be for one person. I also think it's a great gateway into doing things with groups, because the more personal something is, the more universal it is. So if you've got one person who's had XYZ challenge, you've solved it successfully with a group, with your solution, your package, then there will be X other people who have exactly the same stuff going on. You could solve in exactly the same way, or rather you can facilitate them to solve in exactly the same way, however you want to frame it. And you can just go out and run that as a group. Lots of advantages with groups, time, revenue, all sorts of cool stuff. So really what I'm trying to do in this pre-frame, if you like, is flex your thinking, flex your ideas about what you can do, because you can do whatever you like. And it tends not to look that way. It tends to look like there is a way to do it, or some form of formula or recipe to follow. Interestingly, I sat in on a call the other evening, and the person who was speaking had thought about why coaching packages were really cool. So I'm going to read what he said. Massive transformational impact, opportunities to go way deeper. You get truly committed clients. I really like that one. That's a really cool one. There's nothing worse than having half-hearted clients at all. Like, it's like do everything you can to rule them out. It's amazing how committed people come when you're committed to making sure they're committed, if that makes sense. You get dramatic results. True, you can command a premium price. Totally, you can if you want to. And you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that you're going to deliver the goods, because you're away from that time constraint of, oh, I've got to try and get them to see something in an hour, or in 2 hours, or in 5 hours, or they won't renew. So it's a great way of doing that. The one I want to add to that list, I like that list, by the way. The one I'd love to add is you get to be hugely creative. And I said that earlier on. And you can involve your client in that creation process. So the example I'm going to go through today, it's exactly what happened. Involve the client. Any questions so far? I've gone through my yellow post-its. I'm onto a different color. I'm onto mango. Doesn't get any better than this. I wanted to share with you a whole client story. So this is true. This is somebody I worked with a few years ago now, but I worked with them across 4 years, basically, which was really, really nice. So I thought I'd take you right from the beginning of how they became a client, right the way through to when we were doing one-to-one stuff, and then right the way through a coaching package that I constructed with them as a collaboration. Does that sound useful? Yay, that's cool. Brilliant. Okay, brilliant. So this client was a leader in a school. I used to be a school teacher, used to be a leader in an organization. So I had kind of, a bit of kudos in those two areas. But I got to know this client through being on a committee with them, essentially, and watching them in action, and watching the people around them in action in relation to them, and all that kind of thing. And as I was watching, I just spotted things that I thought would be useful to talk to them about. And it really was as basic as that. So I didn't set out to create a client or enroll them or any of those things at all. I find those things fascinating. I find teams and groups fascinating. Obviously, I find people fascinating. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff in the first place. And I just watched how they were, particularly how they were with their... So in the room, they had the person who used to have their job, who was then their boss within the room. So that was an interesting dynamic. They had some people who had knowledge about their world, and then they had a bunch of people who had no knowledge. It was a really diverse group. And I watched them in action, and I watched where they struggled. I watched where they didn't say things that I knew that they would have liked to have said. I watched how they sat on their hands when other people spoke, when there was really stuff they wanted to respond to and didn't. So I built an entire picture in my mind of that individual, of how they were being and whether it was working for them. And then quite simply, the opportunity arose after a meeting, that we were having a cup of coffee or something after a meeting. And I said to the person involved, who do you talk to? And they kind of looked at me like, what kind of weird question is that, you strange man? I said, who do you talk to about all the stuff that you just haven't said? And like the eyes went, like, well, you know, like my read of it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a whole heap of stuff that you're not saying that you'd like to say. So who do you talk to about that? And she kind of looked at me with that kind of smart ass kind of look, you know, and went, I don't. Like, well, would that be useful? And she was like, yeah, I've got loads of stuff I want to get off my chest. It's like, okay, well, I can do that with you. So that's how it started. That was literally the beginning. It was just an opportunity to let somebody who was very frustrated, which, by the way, will account for the vast majority of organizational leaders, particularly in smaller organizations or public owned, or people who are accountable to non-specialists, etc., like schools, health, all that kind of stuff. And I said, fine, when are you free? And we booked for an hour conversation. I think the first conversation was about 3 hours. Like, once she started, that was it. Floodgate city. Now, I'm guessing all of you have had that experience where somebody has said to you, tell me what's going on, and you've wanted to go, bleh. And you've probably done that with a client where you said, tell me what's going on, and they've gone, bleh. So that's a universal experience, just wanting to get stuff off your chest. And that's really what she did. I didn't make notes. I didn't try and coach, actually, which is unusual because mostly I find it hard to keep my mouth shut. But I didn't. I just really listened. And at the end of it, she went, God, that's amazing. Like no one ever listens. I don't have someone to listen to. Someone to listen to me, sorry. I don't have that. I'm like, yeah, well, that's normal. Most leaders don't have that because everybody around you wants a piece of you from one angle or another. Like the people you're responding to want you to be in certain ways. The people who you're responsible for want you to be in certain ways. Everybody has an agenda. I don't have an agenda. Or another way of putting it would be, my agenda could be your agenda, if that would be helpful. We did that for about 2 years, I would guess. Now, I didn't give up 3 hours every single time, but when I had an hour to spend, I'd ping her a text or an email or whatever and say, how's things? How's it going on? XYZ person's driving me mad. What do you think I should do about it? And we started to get a dialogue going. And it was really as straightforward as that. That was it. That was the introduction. And then eventually, and I still wasn't really coaching at that point. I was just listening. Occasionally I'd, offer something if I really thought she was struggling, but it was really just listening. That was it. And eventually I said, look, would you like to move this forward? And she was like, well, what's that then? What do you mean move it forward? How would that even happen? I said, well, okay, here's how my work works. You say stuff and now I join in. Like when we go into something called a coaching agreement, she was like, oh, because she'd never been coached. Like she'd talked to friends about stuff, talked to peers about stuff, probably thought some of that was coaching, but she'd never had a coaching session. It was like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. I'll tell you what. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do one? As it were, do one and find out if you like it, find out if it's going to be helpful for you. And she was like, yeah, cool, I'd like that, but we haven't got any budget. We haven't got any budget. Yeah, no, I know no one's got any budget for anything. Yeah. Apart from all the things they're spending their money on, but no one's got any budget for anything. So I said, look, we've spent quite a long time playing this game. I've quite enjoyed it, but I think I could really help you. And I think it would make a big difference to your performance, the organization's performance, and your future, more importantly. Because my spidey sense was saying that her future lay somewhere else. That indirectly, she'd already left, actually. And then the body was playing catch up, but she'd gone. So we booked in a coaching session, and I coached her, and she loved it. Because like when you do it well, who wouldn't love it? It's just brilliant. You get challenged, you get to see through your own bullshit, you get someone to call you on stuff, you get somebody who, when you make an agreement with, they're going to hold you to it next time. No airy fairy wafty crap. It's going to happen. You've got to do stuff. You need to be accountable. So all of a sudden, you get to be the person that you think you can be, rather than just thinking about the person you think you can be. So a distinct difference there. So we did it. And I said, great, well, this is what I do for a living. Here's how it would work. This would be the fee. What? Nah. Cool. So what is possible in your budget? Well, I could afford half term, 6 sessions, whatever. Okay, cool, let's do it. So at that point, I'm in for removing all barriers. All I want to do is get in and make a difference. So if it had been 50p in a Mars bar, I didn't really care, because I also knew that if I could do this work there, and I could do it in X hundred other places, if I could demonstrate impact. So it's investment on my side always. And we did that. She loved it, and she started to notice the difference. But most importantly, I found in working with people in organizations, I'm sure you guys will have found this as well, if you do that work, people around her noticed. And that's the key one. When people around the client notice the change in the client, the investment in the client goes up for them, because now they really see a difference. There's a big difference between, yeah, I feel kind of better, I feel like I'm doing better work, and somebody going, you've changed, you're different. Like, what's going on? What's that about? So that made a huge impact for her, and I found that it does for people. When the people around them go, you're different, you're changing, how's that? What's going on? Their own investment in themselves starts to rocket, far more than just feeding back to themselves, or even us telling them that they're doing well. So we made a longer agreement, and if you haven't worked out already, it was a school. They went through Ofsted, looked after her and the team through that, and that went well. They got graded as good, which was what they were going to get based on the data. So that was good, because there were a couple of areas of concern, been some blip in SATs and stuff like that. But then we're stuck in a sense, because there's always we haven't got any budget, but we're making progress, we haven't got any budget. And also, although there is this theory that if you've got the leader in front of you, you've got the whole teams in front of you, because the team is just however the leader sees the team, they're constructing them. We both could see, the client and myself could see, that it would be really useful if we could share what we'd been doing, which was mostly principles-based stuff at the time, with the broader team. But I didn't know how to do that. Like, I didn't have any reference points or experience for that at all. So, like, what do you do when you've got no experience, no reference points? Well, you've got divine mind, infinite stuff, available to you. That's all brilliant. It's great. But at that point, it wasn't showing up. I was like, well, the only thing I can do is keep trying to sell another half term and another half term and another half term. And occasionally we'd bring in the team, or I'd sit in a meeting with them and guide them a bit, but it wasn't really cutting the mustard. And then by chance, if one believes in that, I went on a weekend retreat with Robin Charbit and Ken Manning from Insight Principles. You guys know them? Come across their work? Okay. They are, I would say, probably the best principles-based consulting firm in the world. They work totally on referral and by reputation. They do train other practitioners as well. They come over to the UK occasionally. I've not done anything with them for years, but their stuff is good. It's rock solid, and they have lots of experience of delivering it in blue chips. Lots of it. And they get paid very, very, very well for doing it. So it's all really solid, tried and tested. So I went on, I think it was a 3-day thingy with them. And one of the things that was on offer was that they were going to share how they worked with organizations. And I've got to be honest, I hadn't really twigged the significance of that when I'd signed up. Like, it hadn't coincided that, you know, I had a client where I was looking to take it to the broader team, and then suddenly I'm on this 3-day retreat. Well, over the course of the 3 days, they unpacked what they did. And whilst I could see that there was quite a bit of it that just wouldn't work, it's different market, UK to the US, and their fee levels are like a million miles from what many organizations would pay, and their reputation's different. I'm neither of them. They've been doing it 20 odd years. So there was lots of difference. I could see that there was like an acorn, like an idea, like a way where I could shift from doing something with one person to something with a whole group of people. The big advantage of that being that if you open to a whole group of people, first of all, you've got a whole group of people you can work with, which is really, really cool. You've then got a bigger group of people who could hire you for one-to-one, if that's kind of your thing. And then you've got a whole group of people who've experienced your work, who hadn't before, who could then refer you. So it's like, it ticks the win-win-win-win-win-win-winometer, like in a million ways. So about halfway through the second day, I think, I'd seen enough of where we were going to start to think, right, how can I use this? Like I've got to make use of this, because my big thing with everything I learn is how can I use it or teach it as fast as possible. So where the idea for this program, the Ultimate Coaching Package program, came from was signing up to Jamie's over-the-shoulder one-to-one intensive thing. Now, I did the first one he did years back, actually. So this will be second time round for me, because I'm really interested in watching great coaches, looking at the mechanics of how they do things, how they set it up, whatever. So when he offered that, I was like, okay, cool. How can I share that? Obviously, I can't share his material. I'm not aiming to do that. But how can I share what I know, what I think would be useful to bring more people with me, like my Come With Me program, so that more people get to see the practical ability to create a really profitable practice from loving service rather than icky marketing and scarcity bullshit, which is just irritating, I think, for everybody. So I went, okay, cool. I'm going to construct a program. As I say, I'm not trying to teach what he's teaching. For one thing, I'm a mile different from how he works. So like that would just be odd. Secondly, it would be inappropriate, but I can get across the essence of some of the stuff without sort of crossing any boundaries. And I can share the stuff I've done over the years, because I know that in the sharing, what's going to happen is that your thought nodules were going to munch away, and you'll go, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could speak to person X. Oh, I could do that. Oh, this could be possible for me. And that's where the gold is. Far more than, oh, we can just replicate what Dave's saying. The gold is in what you see as being possible for you. So you're going to create the clients inside you prior to then going and finding them or speaking to them. And that's really how it works. And I twigged this the other day when I think I might have been talking with you actually, Rose, when that dropped the other day. It was like, oh yeah, I just create clients in my head and then apparently they appear in the real world. Oh yeah, I'd forgotten that. So that was kind of cool. So I'm doing this weekend thing. If I'm going too quick, by the way, tell me to slow down. If you've got a question, put a question. If you're bored, please just be nice, because otherwise my fragile ego will fall over. So, so we're doing the weekend with Ken and Robin. It was awesome, like mind-bustingly, brilliantly awesome. And I got enough of a sense of how it could work. So I think, right, I can do this with client X. This is the next step. So I literally text her, like in the coffee break, I think I've got a way forward. And we'd already talked about, well, how do you put it to a team? How do you put it to people who don't know anything about it? Because we've been playing this game for like 3.5, nearly 4 years. That's a long time of working with somebody. So she was very used to what I was talking about, the language, the ideas, the benefits, the benefit in a broader life. How do you take it to a team who know none of it? And so I messaged her and said, I think I've got a way forward. Have you got an hour tomorrow? Well, sorry, it would have been the Monday, actually. So this was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. Have you got an hour on Monday? We can talk about it. And she's like, yeah, cool, come in, 12 o'clock. I'll organize a sandwich. I'm always good for a sandwich. So we finished the weekend, and I've now got a blueprint of how it could work. As I say, the main content part needed to be changed slightly because I'm not Ken or Robin, don't have their grounding. It's the US, not the UK. It was education, not business. So like the how, the day-to-day structure, and I tend to work kind of differently anyway in that sort of vein. But broadly, I had enough of an outline to be able to go to somebody and say, do you want to buy this? So I went in to see her and said, look, this is how I've just spent 3 days. So it's total transparency. It's not my structure. These are the guys. This is what they do. It works. Da, 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 da. Do you want to do it? She's like, yeah, cool. Let's give it a whirl. And from that point on, this was the best thing. And I hadn't really seen it as clearly as I did then. It became a collaborative creation. Completely and totally. So what happens when you collaboratively create with a client? They are enrolled. They are so enrolled because it's their program. Now, again, when Rose and I were chatting the other day, it dawned on me for the Ultimate Coaching Package program, just trips off the tongue. Like, the more people see what it can do for them, the more you'll be enrolled into your own experience of the program, which is the only one you're going to have anyway. It will look like it's coming from this side of the camera. It just never will be. You're going to be in your own program, created from your own thought structures, working out what you can do. That'll be it. And I'll be facilitating that, if you like, through a structure that would look like an external program. So I sat down with the client and I said, this is how it's going to work. We take X number of people. We need to agree what X is. X ended up being far bigger than I imagined. I thought she'd want 4 or 5. We ended up with 14. Because when she formed the program, in her mind, guess what she did? She enrolled the people from the organization that she thought would be good for the program. So all my idea of what it should be, well, maybe, you know, her 3 deputies or whatever, it all went out the window. She wanted the office manager there. So I think it's vital for her to be there, and just started listing all these people. I'm like, blimey, okay, cool. So we did that. We went through. And we took it, and pricing. Thought it'd be useful to share with you how we did that. I said, I don't know how to price this because I didn't. So I've always figured, occasionally it causes me grief, tell the truth. Some people think they want the truth. They really don't. But I don't know. I said, I don't know how to price this. So I've had one thought. And my thought is, what would you normally pay for a good quality training in London that included, you know, the room, lunch, whatever? She said, oh, that's easy. It's about, I can't remember what it was exactly, but I don't know, about 200 quid a day. I said, okay, well, we're not in central London. And we just started playing with some numbers. And then in the end, we agreed that she had some contacts, that she would find the room. She would sort out the catering. Literally, I would rock up and deliver the content. And we ended up, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere between 120 and 150 per head per day, which 14 people is, anybody really good at mental maths? Let's say it was, I don't know, 120 a day. 1,680 quid a day with no other expenses than me rocking up. To test pilot something, essentially, and deliver a result for a client. And to potentially recruit all those people into a better experience of themselves, all those people that they can speak to, all those people that they can speak to, all those people that they can speak to, the ripple effect. So like, over the years, I've seen that the money is important because like you guys, I have bills to pay. It's so not the issue. So it is important. It's just not the issue. And every time I make it the issue, I fall over. And every time I remember that it's important, but it's not the issue, I pick up and keep going again. Helpful? Creating ideas? Questions? Yeah, go for it, Rose.
I love this, and I'm curious about the sort of structure, I guess, or the content, or how long you worked with them as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So any other questions, or should I just dive straight into that one? Okay, go straight into that one. So structure, I took the way that Insight Principles, that's Keith and Robin's outfit, do it. They do masses, and I mean masses of intake. And their basic thing is they have a point they want to get to with each of the members who are going to attend the 3 or 4 day training. I think it's 4 day, might be 3 now. It was either 3 or 4 that they do. They have this whole intake process where the basic thing is they have to get each delegate to a point where they're getting it. So like that, you know, how things work from the inside out. So we're living in a thought generated experience, not a world generated experience. It's going that way and not this way. They have to get to a point where the ground has moved enough for each delegate that they're happy to put them in the room. And simply, if they're not happy that they've reached there, they don't put them in the room. They're really, really tight on that. So they won't put anybody shaky in the room. And they're very clear with the CEOs that that's the case. So if there's somebody who, for whatever reason, I mean, this isn't, you know, a conversation for everyone, but for whatever reason, they're just not getting it, or they're likely to sabotage or whatever, they'll work with them for as long as is viable. And then it'll be, look, at the moment, it's just not for them. And they have the final call on that. And the CEOs have to agree to that. Now, I didn't have the guts to do that, if I'm honest. So one of my lack of guts learnings would be that I hadn't done the due diligence like far enough in advance. They spend hours, they charge a lot of money. I couldn't charge a lot of money, the budget just wasn't there. And so my bad, if you like, was I didn't do enough of the intake. Because I think on the blurb I said I'd share like where I think I could have done much better and how I do it differently nowadays. It didn't put enough effort into the intake, paid or unpaid. Nowadays I just do it anyway, regardless. Then it was a bit more penny pincher, you know. So I didn't do anywhere near enough of that. And there were probably a couple of people in the room who it would have been better had they not been there, in all honesty. From a group dynamic point of view, they had a lot of other agendas going on, one of which was playing up to the rest of the group. That's just challenging. Interestingly, a couple of years later, I did do one, and I had a group. This was up in town somewhere, and one of the people playing up was the FD, and I took him out at the coffee break and said, "You either stop or I throw you out." And he was like, I said, "I'm really sorry. That is the agreement." And I'd agreed it with the head of people, I think, guy was. You can't be doing what you're doing. It's just not appropriate. And if that's how you're functioning normally, then probably that would be a good conversation for you and I to have at a different point, or you with your exec coach or whatever. But right now, for this circumstance, for what we're doing, this stops, you're out. It's very, very simple. And he stopped, intriguingly. So I think gradually I did become a bit more brave. I'd love to see what I do nowadays. You know, maybe it'll appear, and I mean, it could be way more entertaining, because I think the amount you're bothered disappears as time goes by. Rose, did you have another question?
Yeah, it's just about that, really. I guess so. And maybe this is taking it more broadly. Did you start with, in your mind, or would you start with almost like you start with agreements, I'm presuming, around that, because that's almost like setting the whatever you want to call it, but setting the tone, setting the frame, setting the structure, all those things. And I guess is that internally, well, it'll be explicit, won't it? Like what I hear that you're saying is how you work, because you're three principles based. It's like in your head you want to get people to a certain point, but you also have, do you have an agreement, like not if they're not at a certain point, but if you can see that there's some, you'll word it in a different way I'm sure, but some sabotaging, whatever that's going on, then you're sort of saying you are agreeing to be open to have a conversation, etc., etc. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
No, that's absolutely true. It would be much more about agreement these days, and I wouldn't have languaged it in that way previously, but no, you're absolutely spot on. That's exactly what it would be. And again, with all of this, it's important for each of you to think about how you would do it. Like what would the best version, I know slightly clunky language, but go with me anyway. What would the best version of you do? How would you frame it? How would you have to agree with you to be such that you pretty much guaranteed the best experience for them? Now, I'm fairly sure this is correct, and it is a while ago, but I'm fairly sure the Insight Principles guys just offered a watertight, you don't like it, you don't pay guarantee. I mean, they stacked it so heavily, which of course I see Ankush do in the coaching school. He's stacking it so heavily that it would be very difficult for anybody to turn around and go, well, you didn't give me opportunity. Like we haven't even started it yet, and even now I'd be struggling with that. I'd be like, well, we've had this, we've had this, we've had this, we've had this, we've had this. I think I've worked it out. It's about me. So the more you, if you like, front load the preparation, the intake, the pre-study, everything, and the more you make that your modus operandi. I'm starting to do this even for people who reach out and go, can I just have a conversation? Previously, I'd be like, oh yeah, thank God. Someone wants to talk to me, whereas now it's like, whoa, hang on. Now we're not there yet. We haven't even got to that point. And Hardison's brilliantly clear on this. It's like every time he asks, it's an opportunity for you to grow, you being whoever he's asking. So it's a gift. His asking is a gift. And to start with, I was a bit like, oh, not sure I can see that. And then the more you practice it, be it, if you like, you start to see, oh my goodness, yeah, that's completely right. Because, and I know there's this difficult thing about like filling a practice, but it's so important to have people who are going to be on the bus because they want to be on the bus and they want to go where the bus is going, particularly because, in coaching, it's their bus, really. So it's so important to stack it, in my view, just my view, to such a degree that we're getting people who will spend their time and, of course, invest their money in creating the result and really want to create it. Like they actually genuinely do. And that isn't necessarily everybody. There can be other patterns and stuff running. So intake, that was the big part. And I'd never considered that. I'd never considered all the pre-work you could do with people prior to an event starting. So lo and behold, now everything I'm doing has stuff like this in it, whether people sign up or not. Because, okay, maybe people don't want to do this program. Yeah, no problem at all. Cool. They might want to do a different one. So I've got to give the experience that I want them to bring with them into whatever it is they do with me or with anyone else. I think it will serve them regardless. It's not just an about working with Dave thing. Annette and Oleg. Annette first, I think.
Yeah, could you describe a little bit about what the intake looks like and how what you do?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. No, thank you. So in that example I've just shared, I didn't do it very well. I did it with the head and the deputies. I didn't get round to everybody else. And that was just my mistake. I should have done, and I didn't. Lazy, actually, if I'm really honest, a bit cringy, but there you go. The next time I did it, and I did it with another trust, I did do intake. And I just did an hour conversation on the phone with people. And I really, in that hour, I just wanted to hear them. Quite a few of them had very strong views about what they thought of coaching, mostly that it was pointless. And how could somebody who wasn't exactly in their role with exactly their year's experience have any hope of helping them? So there was that to overcome. One guy who was really lovely, he said, you won't ever sell it to me. So I just think people like you are just, you're probably not very good at other things, so you've ended up doing this. I mean, he was just out and out anti-coaching. There was only one thing that made him listen. He was very, very honest about it. He said, the only thing, he said, I've read your website and whatever site I had up in those days. And the only thing that interested me was you said that through what you know, your relationship with your kids improved. And I'm interested in that. Like, if you've got something that will help me with that, he said, I'm struggling with my daughter massively. So if there's something you know that will help that, I'll pay attention. I'm like, cool, come for that. Make that your thing, right? Because coming to prove that I'm an idiot or whatever isn't going to be useful for you or for me, actually. You know, it's not going to be a great experience for either of us if you're going to make your mission of 3.5 days to discover that I'm a donut. I mean, you know, like, just chat with my kids. They're there. They've got it. We don't need to know that. So, and he did. And also, I have to say, his feedback was stunning at the end of the thing. Like, it's that age-old thing, isn't it? When people bring resistance, I love it nowadays. It's like people really resisting. Cool, fab. That's the deck stacked. Because when they topple, they're going to topple big time, and they're going to bring a whole heap of wow, I really couldn't see it. Thank you, which is going to serve them hugely, like absolutely massively. It's going to help them. So it was just conversations. I'd probably do it a little bit differently now. It would be more rigorous. It would have, but if it's with people who really don't know this game, I wouldn't want to make it so rigorous that it was off-putting. So I'm just looking for something that they latch onto that has them in the room, whatever it is. Nicer to my kids, treat my partner with more respect, put my phone down at weekend. I don't care what it is. Anything that engages them and enrolls them into the experience, I'm good with. Does that help, Annette? Oleg.
I really like this idea of intake. And when I was listening, I literally got your example, Dave. When you spend 2 years with your client, just getting this intake, connecting with the client.
Yeah.
So when you're in the room, they literally, you have this bridge, you connected, so that their listening is sharpened.
Yeah.
So they listen to your message.
Yeah.
And when I will assume something, actually I have learned this. If you don't have time to do the intake, just write a booklet about your work, my work, what the program entails, what I'm all about, and share with the teams. And that way they will be a little bit closer to the.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. As I say, with all of this, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. With all of it, take it and, you know, it. Make it work how it works for you. For me, intake works best like this. This is where I'm most skilled. I can do the other stuff, but this is the bit where I can, you know, if you're the client, I can get you to see that it really is about you, and you're going to create what you're going to get, and that could be really very, very exciting. It could be really cool because you'll get an image of what's possible for you, and then you'll get to live that forward. And that's a million times more empowering than sitting waiting for me to be good, just in case I'm a bit shit. Because then it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not creating the excuse, because my job is to turn up and leave nothing. This is my expression nowadays, leave nothing of me on the table, like give you everything I can possibly give you. So I've just been looking as I'm doing this as well, where am I not doing that then? Oh, right, I won't share the material I'm going to share. Cool, I'll just change that then. I'll just start sharing it. Oh, but what if someone doesn't sign up? Well, they don't then. There we go. It's hardly likely to be cataclysmically the end of the world, is it? But that could be another person who sees more freedom, who sees more potential to help, who makes more money. So in the bigger picture of having more prosperous coaches coming from loving service, it's a massive tick. And that massive tick outweighs any sort of modicum of like ego-based concern that could arise for me. And they do, I promise you. Of course they do. It's ridiculous to suggest they don't. Obviously so. So yeah, that's kind of the logic. So the intake, I think, is the first big missing piece of the jigsaw. Fundamentally, we're conditioned to be too mean with what we've got. We're just not sharing enough. We're holding back. So like, just stop that. Just start giving everything you can in every conversation. Like anything that's possible. If you've got a booklet, give them a booklet. Send it to as many people as you can. Write to people, I've written a booklet for these people. Now, the next time I got to deliver this kind of training, it was on the back of a referral from somebody in the room for the first one. And I've got to be honest, I don't suppose the first one was great. You know, it was a best effort on a new model, etc., etc., etc. And we tweaked the content for the second one. The content of the time. So we did the intake, and again, we'll do far more of that nowadays. The training was 4 days. They took 14 people out for 4 days. That's huge. Now, the thing we did, no, we didn't do it the first time. I did it the second time. The first time we did 4 days back to back. And it was great in a sense, but by the 4th day, because people were coming from school, they were getting itchy. What's going on at school? I've been out for too long. There are lots of thinking coming in. So the next time I did one with a school, I cut it to 3 days because I could refine the content by then. And I did 2 days back in school for a day, follow-up day. Now, the big thing that helped with was when they went back into school, it was a bit like, oh my God, all that stuff we've been talking about, people responding to thought and thinking it's a thing, they were watching it live. So they could really see the unbenefit of not knowing, if you like. They could see how not knowing what they'd learned was a massive problem for people. What did that do? Up their engagement and enrollment into the final day, the following day. Because they could see literally how cataclysmically nightmarish it was when people are responding to their thoughts as if they're real things. And we all know that. But they could really see it's like, wow, we've only had 2 days of this, and like people are running around like headless chickens. Now, interestingly, this is the second training. Their colleagues on the day they went back into schools said, so what the hell have you lot been doing? Is it some kind of like weird Zen Buddhist-y style retreat where you've just sat in silence and gone on? Because they all had this quiet that had come across them. So again, they could see, reflected back, whoa, I'm different. This must be cool then, because the feedback's good. So it worked quite nicely that way. The structure of the days was essentially what I thought would really work from getting to know the clients and some things that the clients wanted to work at. So actually, I'm looking to get to the point where the clients are running it as early as possible, where we're then responding to their requirements. Yeah, Rose.
Sorry, I couldn't find the electronic hand first. So, okay.
Apparently this works too.
Sometimes if you do that, it does go up, right?
Yeah, no, there's a setting, isn't there, that when you do, because I had mine turned on without realizing, and my hand kept going up. I'm like, what the hell's that? Yeah, go on, sorry.
So when you say you had them running it,
yeah,
do you mean, and I'm just thinking of this because I've been in an event run by a 3 principles trained practitioner, and it was fascinating how he had the audience basically running the whole event. He was just like, his whole thing was, I want to be the laziest coach. So I'm here, you're running this. You don't realize you're running it, but you're going to be running it.
Yeah.
And he had a little bit of intro. We talked about this, that, and the other. And then he was like, right, so what do you want to explore? Wrote it all out.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, so let's vote. Which thing are we going to focus on? And let's say it was fear. How to deal with fear, or how do I get over my fear? And then it was just a conversation. And is that kind of what you mean? So it was that they were guiding and directing the.
Totally. Yeah. So the banner for the second time I did it was advanced coaching skills. That's what they said they wanted. They had a coaching culture in the trust, but what they really meant was they had a very formulaic, question-based approach involving lots of weird game playing with each other, where people who knew each other would then sit separately in a room for 20 minutes and go, so, Rose, how are things for you? In this sort of weird, stilted kind of manner. So we explored how you could create a coaching culture without the weird. That was the point we wanted to get to. So started off with some, can't even remember, exercises and getting feedback, and then created the next exercises based on the feedback. And the next, and so it to and froed until on the final day, they pretty much told me what they wanted to get out of it. And the big thing they wanted to do like a really, really long coaching session. None of them had ever done it. It had been like snatched conversations. So with like the last exercise, I think we did for like 90 minutes or something, like really deep, you know, which they might call a review or what's the word, appraisal meeting or something, like, whatever. And because they'd also discovered over the course of the days how awful they were at listening. So they wanted to explore that. Well, what's it like if I actually do listen then, if I shut up? So they wanted to know what they wanted, the experience of what it was like to shut up for 3/4 of an hour and just let someone talk. And a few of them got really, really emotional because they could see back over the years how they'd closed kids down. They'd asked kids about stuff and the kids had said, had started to open up and answer, and they'd leapt to something. And so it was quite hard for them because they really, you know, like for any of us, when you come across your own, you know, foibles and weaknesses to start with, it isn't comfortable necessarily. It can be relief, but often it's like, oh, really? Ouch. So there was quite a bit of that to handle as well. So it was lovely. But yeah, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but the first person I saw do that really skillfully was Gary Vaynerchuk. And he did it in a keynote speech with I mean, probably 1,500 people in front of him. He literally walked on stage and said, show of hands, how many people know who I am? And about half the room went up. He went, cool. So for 15 minutes, for the other half, I'll just tell you a bit about why I'm on the stage today. Then I'll move to your questions. Is that okay? And that was it. And it was gold, because people really got to settle down, settle into him, and then they really created the gold that they wanted to create during the sessions with him. It was fascinating to watch. I'd never seen a keynote speaker do that kind of thing, and I just thought, oh, that's cool. I love that. I want to do that. Like, I want to get to, like, even in a training, I want to get to coaching as fast as possible. And in the coaching, I want me out of the way as fast as possible. So they're really just speaking themselves through, creating. Because then you get to have the whole conversation about speaking as creating rather than speaking as reporting. It's just, it's like a wicked open door. And I've seen people try and do it as a technique and it die on its arse as well. So I've been in seminars where people have gone, okay, what I'm going to do is get the audience to do all the work, and the audience weren't there. So do you know what I mean? Anything can collapse. So like the more on it we are, the more agile, the more we can weave between needing to teach, share something, back away. So it's not necessarily about becoming formulaic. And that's why I thought this whole ultimate coaching package program would be cool, because you could just like expand everyone's repertoire. And then when you're sitting with somebody, you can go, I tell you what, I think it'd be really cool. And ask them, you know, talk to them about it, engage them. Oh yeah, no, I'd love that. I'd love a day. I did it with a one-to-one client a couple of weeks ago. Would you like to have a day to start with? Like, it feels to me like a day would be good. 90 minutes, you go away for a bit. 90 minutes, you go away for a bit. Oh, I'd love that. He said, yeah, I'd love that. Just want to get out of my current environment and have a day. Cool, let's do that then. That's how we'll start our work. Brilliant. So there's so much flexibility there if we're flexible, basically. All right, I'm just conscious of the time. So I'll go into the last section. Do ask questions. Stick your hand up. Anything you want to know. So the last section is follow-up. And again, this isn't something I would have thought of. Now, I'm not talking about like a how well did I do questionnaire at the end. I'm talking about a call a week later, 2 weeks later. So talked about intake. This is outtake, or however you want to describe it. Outtake, funny word. But going back to the same people, how is it for you now? Tell me about what you're seeing. Where are the blind spots? Still serving, still coaching afterwards. Now, again, Insight Principles guys, big budgets, big organizations, they've factored it all in. I wasn't as diligent as that as I could have been. But I would be nowadays. Like the follow-up. You know, how's it going? Where are you seeing it? What are you not seeing? What else would be useful for you to explore? Are there blind spots? Are there things that would be helpful? You just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And hardly anyone does that. It's like course finishes, that's it. Paid your money, had your service, gone. Yeah, but what about what's next? I went to a course recently, I've had one email follow-up. Oh, what a missed opportunity. What a missed opportunity. So factoring in all the time to do that is really good. Cool, that's mostly the content I've got for you today. It's really powerful. You can do it in all sorts of different organizations. Questions? Perfect, 2 o'clock. No questions, great. Well, if you've got any questions, actually, if I've done this right, and if I haven't, send me your email. We can carry on the conversation. I can add you to the conversation. And you'll be able to send me any questions that you've got afterwards. But you guys all know me anyway, so you can message me on Messenger or whatever, and find out. All right, lovely. Thanks for your time. See you again. Take care, everyone.
Good day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Thanks,
Say goodbye
Dave.
to
See you
baby
later.
for me.
Yeah, will too. Thanks, Dave. Bye.
See you later.